Hello, hello, hello. I would like to welcome everyone to the 34th episode of Money Trees. I'm joined by an artist, creator, and super curator. Today's guest has been connecting dope artists to collectors and platforms while putting together IRL galleries and spaces during the hottest moments of this young NFT art movement. A clearly selfless individual that embodies all that is right in the space. I'm glad to welcome Max Kulchinsky to the show. How are you doing today, G?
Yo, can you hear me all right? Am I getting rugged?
No, you're in here, man. You're in here. You sound great.
Okay, bet. My Wi-Fi has been really weird the last couple of days. Other than that, I'm doing very well. I appreciate you having me, and yeah, I appreciate the super curator title. I might have to change that on my bio or something.
I mean, it's accurate and deserving. It was really ill, and so I'll give a little backstory real quick. I actually ran into Max back during Art Basel in December at a Zoratopia event. Super good vibes. Just I'd seen him through Twitter and just kind of communicated there. So having those IRL meetups was awesome. But I still didn't really know too much about who you were and what you did outside of people really loved you in the space. And I'd been seeing that you were doing a lot in New York based around curation. And so when I was thinking about guests that I wanted in the show last month, and I started diving in to just kind of look at your footprint online in the space, you are truly a super curator, man. And you have been putting in the work for over a year now. And that's really, really fire. Like going back and seeing the efforts and energy you've been putting into the space, it's incredible. So yes, I do think that you are deserving of the title, and I may have just jumped around a little bit there on some of my homework. But yo,
Nah, thank you so much, for real. That means a lot.
yeah, hell yeah. And I was crazy because I remember seeing, actually, I should have started off with this top of the morning. I love your top of the morning piece that you had created. What was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, I have a few things I want to say about that piece. Kind of obviously, I was a bit inspired by the Baby Keem Kendrick Lamar track, Range Brothers. Definitely one of my favorite songs last year, probably my favorite hip hop song last year. And yeah, that came out, I want to say, like the very end of summer, beginning of fall. I had that on repeat all the time. And yeah, it almost became sort of like an inside joke, I think, for people in the space. I don't want to speak for other people, but for me at least, and for a group of my friends, I feel like it almost became an inside joke for people who like kind of got tired of saying GM, or like felt like GM was becoming like this weird sort of thing. I don't know if that's really like, I don't want to speak for too many people about that, but that sort of felt like a weird inside joke that was happening. And I also just loved the song. And I was saying it a lot, especially between friends. And usually my larger scale works, especially the series of sheetrock pieces that I made mostly last year and that I'm making more of this year, I make those primarily outside of New York City because it's so hard to have like a large space here. I usually make them in New Jersey in a garage. And yeah, for whatever reason, I prepped that piece of sheetrock um, like pretty late the night before I started working on it. And basically, prepping those pieces is like making sure that they're clean and trying to make sure that they're not going to fall apart because sheetrock is a pretty temperamental material. And then I paint them that color green that's sort of familiar with like the New York City post no bills type walls. That was really the inspiration for that whole series, and it's definitely something that I'm still focusing on and tapping into. But anyway, so it was basically just a green piece of sheetrock, and the next morning I woke up probably around like 7 or 8 a.m. Which sometimes in life is normal for me, other times not so normal. But I woke up with a lot of energy and not a lot of coffee, which was not normal at that time. and I went straight into that garage and just went crazy and like started. I was listening to like a lot of that song by Baby Keem and Kendrick and um, a bunch of Kanye and like just a bunch of like hype motivational hip hop records, which I've always loved, and I've been a hip hop fan for so long now. But I think in the last year, and particularly like as a visual artist over the last few years, I don't really create to lots of hip hop. Like most of the time, I'm listening to different types of jazz or like ambient music or electronic music or um, like other types of vocal albums or like sample heavy albums, but not a lot of hip hop unless I'm really feeling that. And for whatever reason, with that piece, it was a ton of hip hop. I think almost entirely hip hop that I was listening to, and I made it. And it was sort of like the piece where the symbol that I've been drawing a lot and really like putting into a majority of my art now, the Watcher. That was sort of the piece where the Watcher like started to make sense on a large scale. Um, and I just had a lot of fun making it. Not most of my art um, requires me to go to like a weird dark place, and that piece was just a lot of fun. And there, I could probably count on one hand the amount of pieces I made that were like only fun to make, and not and didn't have like some like weird dark headspace that required me to finish it, or like just like the artist suffering trope. um so it was just a really fun piece, and then that happened in between NFT NYC and Art Basel, and I just met like so many amazing people who I was already friends with or just became friends with through meeting in person. um and I was really inspired and just really felt like open and grateful for all these people, and I wanted to dedicate a piece sort of to like this movement or and group or collective or whatever you want to call it, that really started to feel like home and feel like genuine homies. So it just kind of all felt right. It was like almost a commentary on like, top of the morning, like we all have to get up and get to it and like motivate each other. And I don't know, it works on a lot of levels for me. So once the title popped in my head almost as a joke because of the Kendrick Baby Keem record, it was like it was so perfect that it stuck beyond a joke. And I think that for I'll stop here because I feel like I've been talking for like 5 minutes. Usually my favorite titles and a lot of my favorite ideas will like start almost as like a joke or something that is like too meta or like almost like on the verge of being corny, but it just sticks. So yeah, I'm really stoked with everything about that piece, and I think it like unlocked a lot for me as an artist, and it seems like so far it's like everybody's favorite piece that I've made. So it's been really encouraging.
Gee, I love that. So there's a you well, one, I'll say don't ever worry about the length at which you're speaking. You are I feel like every guest that I have on there, but in particular, you do so much for others that I love the opportunity to have a light really shine on you and what your process looks like, and to hear about that. Even hearing, it's crazy because you answered so many questions I would have had, such as the fact that you're in New York, and I'm thinking like, okay, where do you go work at, right? Where do you kind of find that space? Because I know for me in the city, the what I create in New York is very different than what I create when I'm outside of New York. So hearing
Yeah.
about the garage and the elements there. Also, hearing about the headspace that you normally operate in. That really leads me to a follow up question with
Yeah.
Good Luck World, right? And I want to
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
my instant kind of take on it. And I remember when I saw that, and I'm like, oh, Good Luck World, right? And it was almost like Good Luck, comma, world. And it felt like this simultaneous hello and goodbye. And it was really, really interesting to me because I'm like, that means something. Well, it means whatever it means to me. And when I look at that phrasing and that word, it really captured my attention. And seeing this art as a part of it, and knowing that that symbol you call the Watcher, and then thinking about Good Luck World, it's already making sense in my mind as to the way I was interpreting the art. but can you talk a little bit about where the Good Luck World name comes from and really what that is in regards to your brand?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
let
And
me even with
yeah,
brand, like let me
yeah.
I've been trying to Bob Love got me off of that where it's like I think brand can have a negative connotation. So we'll say, what is Good Luck World in your world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it means a lot. Just the depths to which you analyze that, or at least like uh, explored that, because sometimes I wonder if I'm presenting things a little too confusing or without enough explanation. So that's really cool. Especially what you said about like good luck, comma world, because that's almost by design, like that it could work both ways. It really started. So good luck world really started with a project called Good Luck that I began making in 2017 when I was still in college. I was taking a screen printing course. I was really interested in like making my own t-shirts. That's really where that started. At the time, I was working on different like little creative projects with a friend of mine. We sort of had I guess what you would call a brand, but it wasn't really like a legit brand, I would say. But anyway, I took the screen printing course, really wanted to print my own t-shirts. Um, the final project for that course was a poster assignment where you had to, design or illustrate or whatever, make your own poster and like transfer it to the negative and then burn it into a screen and print them yourself and present them to the class and do the whole thing. And there were some really cool posters, some of which I remember, but mine was very fucking different from the rest of them. Um, and not just like put anybody else's work down and be like, oh, it was so unique, but like it was a very heavy design. So let me take it back a few more months from there. We're talking like spring 2017. Um, so a few months, really like 6 months before then, was the 2016 election, which was like very disappointing and upsetting. Seems obvious to me, but I guess I have to, give that context. But it was a really weird time to be a college student and like experience what was happening basically in that moment of history. And also being a Jewish person in that moment of history, there was so much anti-Semitism coming out of the woodwork that I had never really experienced or been exposed to outside of my education and outside of like specifically my education of the Holocaust and other, you know, events throughout history or whatever. But there were really like no points in my life where like I saw a swastika or somebody said something strange to me or whatever. And those things started to happen pretty frequently, from I would say like around the election up until that spring, where like in the library at school, I saw swastikas like carved into one of the desks. And going on Twitter, there was just a barrage of like really terrible, weird things happening all the time. And this was still before like some of the synagogue shootings and some of the other terrible stuff that happened over the last few years. Um, but it started to affect me despite me losing a lot of my religious identity and sort of settling more into like a cultural Jewish identity, or I guess however you're supposed to put that. Though I made a whole project about this subject, it's still very difficult to talk about, and understand as an American Jewish person. But um, anyway, so really like seeing the swastika became a very triggering, traumatic thing for me, and I hadn't really come to terms with it or like understood sort of like how to process or deal with that sort of thing. Um, and yeah, it really culminated in like a few like really not great mental breakdown moments and different things that kind of happened during that time span between the election and the spring. And I really sort of like the day or two before I had to show the design to the professor before we started printing, it kind of came to me in like a rush of like I need to fucking confront the swastika somehow because like it's driving me crazy and it's like taking a toll on my mental state. And I started doing some really cursory research on the symbol. The first thing I found was that the swastika, the original meaning of the word swastika and the actual symbol is good luck. And that was reflected through various cultures, specifically like Indian and Asian cultures. And I was really shocked to read that. And it sort of resonated in a unique way for me because good luck immediately reminded me of the phrase Mazel Tov, which a lot of folks think the definition of Mazel Tov is like congratulations or something like that. But the literal translation from Hebrew to English is good luck. And I've always felt that that has sort of like an ironic or I guess like uh, I'm not sure how to put it, but it always like that knowing that like you say Mazel Tov during these like big moments like a marriage or a birth or something like that or a bar mitzvah or whatever. I always felt that saying good luck to someone after like a major milestone is sort of like the most like hilarious Jewish thing where it's like, you know, congrats, but like you still got to do the next one. Like, you know, good luck like getting to the next stage or whatever. You know, like don't celebrate too much. And that kind of I've always identified with that sort of like through the ideals by which I was raised on. And I think a lot of American Jews and probably, you know, more recent European Jews were raised on. But I digress a little bit. So I discovered this like sort of double entendre within one of the most traumatizing things I could think of and that I could experience. And then I designed this poster like literally immediately, like Google search in one tab and Photoshop open in the other tab, and I take the word Mazel Tov and just repeat it a bunch of times in like a dark blue, sort of a navy blue, and then I make a swastika in the color yellow that goes on top of it, and then a Magen David, the Star of David in red, all the way on top. And I haven't talked too much, and I don't really want to talk too much about the Magen David and like why it's like so bold and big and red. But there was sort of like a little purpose of like trying to um, recontextualize each of the symbols, each of the meanings, each of the colors. And I guess I did a good job on a color level because I didn't realize that I was making like a primary color poster. And I've always kind of subconsciously been obsessed with primary colors and like almost having this feeling that like all three of them used correctly kind of like completes a picture really well or like just kind of feels right. Um, so that poster happened really quickly. I showed it to my professor and I like told her a lot of why I wanted to do this and like why I needed to do this and that I was sorry that I was going to burn a swastika into one of the screen printing screens in the university. And also I asked her like should I be telling the rest of my classmates what I'm doing before I do that because I don't want anyone to like think that I'm a neo-Nazi. So those conversations were kind of tough but necessary, and I got her blessing. And the folks that saw me printing in the hours that I went in were definitely confused or concerned, but I, you know, had to address those things. And anyway, I finished the posters. I presented them. I did really well in that class. Like people were really, I was taken aback by how much people were willing to like bend their comfort with their, you know, with their interpretation of that poster. And in confronting the symbol and like really letting go of some of the power that it had over me, I kind of felt a little bit lighter as a person. um, so that kind of led me to confronting my next fear, which was actually visiting Germany, because I think I was so um, like programmed to be afraid of that place and those people. So that summer, my mom, to celebrate like a big birthday of hers, she took me to Germany. We went together and explored a lot of different sites related to and not related to the Holocaust. And that was sort of like the beginning of me researching these different things, like in a sort of historical, but also biographical way. And then that led me to returning the following year to Europe. I was doing a study abroad, like summer program, and then I stayed and traveled alone to a few places and met friends in a few places. And some of those experiences were really, really fucking crazy and like really unexpected. And I had this goal in mind to show the posters in an art show, along with like some posters that I painted over and a zine I created that sort of documented that journey, from like the trauma, from like the election and the trauma to the art and to the exploration literally in some of those places. And then so yeah, I did that. I went the summer of 2018. I came back and did my first time ever showing anybody my art was September 2018. This gallery that I rented out in Bushwick, really close to where I'm currently at now, which is kind of funny, the full circle of that. Um, and yeah, showed it for the first time, like definitely killed a lot of my fear of sharing my art and also like of those things that I was just mentioning. And then by virtue of that, I connected with some other Jewish artists in New York City. There's an organization called the Jewish Art Salon, which is a nonprofit. Um, and they really embraced the project and invited me to speak on a panel at the 92nd Street Y about art and anti-Semitism, and that was really a great experience. And then right before I graduated, I was able to show sort of an abridged version of Good Luck at the school I went to, the Macaulay Honors College at CUNY. It's like that part of CUNY basically, it's like an honors school that only has like one building in Lincoln Center. So basically, I took over like the first floor of that building and featured a bunch of different pieces. And then I really didn't make art for like from around that time, like in 2019, around when I graduated, till like a year later in the thick of COVID. And that's when I painted a piece that I call Pieces of a Man, which is my profile picture. Um, I wish I shared some of these links with you before so you could have pinned them, but that's entirely my fault. So yeah, I was pretty like burnt out by making such heavy, serious art. And there was just a lot of life stuff that I was going through for that time. And then Pieces of a Man kind of like came in a rush, like probably like an hour just painting on a piece of paper in my mom's basement during COVID, during lockdown, that is. And then, um, yeah, I started getting really into NFTs a few months after that, towards the end of 2020. And I really fell all the way in like at the end of the year, beginning of last year, and haven't looked back since. So in a very roundabout way, to answer some of your questions about Good Luck and Good Luck World, it's sort of my brand, sort of not. If that makes sense. Like Good Luck is an ongoing project that I will probably never stop doing things with, as long as I'm here. It's really hard to do that work, and it's been a few years since I've really put something out that's related to it. I do have a goal of making another zine, which I'm really just starting research on now. There are a couple of books that I'm reading sort of in that subject, and there are people that I'm looking at that I'm like, maybe that's somebody I would interview, or like maybe this is another angle, because I don't really just want to make every single piece of this project about myself. but it's really hard, honestly, to make stuff in that like related to that topic and in that headspace. And like the artists that are my biggest inspirations for that, and I would say they're not just Jewish artists. I would actually say a lot of my biggest inspirations, like spiritually, are Black artists that have, you know, made art about their experiences and their ancestral baggage. Um, I think a lot of artists that go to that place are really like it really takes a toll on your life, and on your mindset. And the Jewish artists that I do consider inspirations, like Art Spiegelman, who did the Mouse graphic novel, and Judy Chicago, who's like probably one of the greatest living American artists and only really made one project about the Holocaust and stuff like that. Um, they didn't really follow up on those projects for at all, if they ever did, because it's really hard, and it's really draining. So I'm sort of unsure still how I'm going to follow it up. There are a lot of works in progress and a lot of ideas and a lot of work to be done, but it feels like in some uh, in some form like my life's purpose. So I'm still working on it, and I do a lot of other projects like under the Good Luck name, and I'm working on a new website to sort of like have an archive of a lot of the things that I've done over the years. But yeah, it's definitely like heavy stuff, and it's also hard um, to distinguish between like the things that are related to those heavier things and then like pieces or projects that are a little bit more like fun or not as heavy. But I do think that the watcher lives in Good Luck World, and I would say like most of the art that I actually want to share and do share and sell, which I never did until NFTs, I think most of that stuff really is Good Luck World. So that's the reason why I've kept using that name, and why I've kept, you know, I've really kept that project alive. But it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely not easy stuff, to say the least.
Yo, man, that so let me say, I know firsthand how difficult it can be finding ways to cope with trauma and ways that, these experiences that you were relatively unfamiliar with or hadn't seen that started becoming commonplace and needing to find how, you know, how that would affect your new kind of reality. And so I'm genuinely blown away by the origin story of this because clearly when I was looking at that, it was different, right? And I think that part of the beautiful piece of getting to talk with artists and hear about their process is understanding where the motivation for these creations come from. For a curator to have this level of attention, it makes not that you are just a curator, but it really makes sense to me how you're able to find and connect these pieces because you have such an attention to detail with everything that you're creating. And with your own art, you understand the storytelling elements that go into it, the process that allows it to resonate with people, like you mentioned with the primary colors, but understanding the difficulty that people may have with saying a message that isn't exactly, it's, and not to draw parallels here, but like with Joe Rogan and getting in trouble for using the N word, and it's like who's allowed to say and use certain things. So you needing to navigate the space of being a Jewish artist and figuring out how that swastika can be incorporated in your work, and even hearing the meaning of what the swastika originally stood for and Mazel Tov were both new pieces of information that is still kind of like a bit of a mind fuck right now that they both equally mean good luck
Right?
and have such opposite ends of the spectrum in which they operate on or operate from. So, it's excuse me, rarely that I am left speechless, but I think you covered and addressed your impetus for creating Good Luck World, and I'm very excited to see where it continues to go. I I genuinely don't have much to add on to there, Max. That was really, really eye opening, and I appreciate you sharing that story. It is very, very heavy work that you're describing, and I think it's an important message and important stories like this that need to be told. And I opened up this episode by saying many of the you embody a lot of the ethos of Web3 with your selflessness, your approach to the craft, the way that you big up artists, and clearly the thought and time that goes into what you create and what you share. So yo, shout out to you, man. That's really, really fucking fire for real, for real.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I would say like it that backstory and really like, the whole journey I just described, as short as I tried to keep it, though I don't know if it was as concise as I would like. That's really my impetus to create my own stuff in general, and I think like my the motivation to amplify other artists or exhibit other artists or just encourage people to make stuff is it comes from a similar place. Like I don't think that everybody necessarily needs to create such heavy work or I'm not, though I just kind of described this whole like identity driven narrative. I don't really think like everything needs to be centered around identity or individualism or whatever. But I think that like everybody has a symbol or a story or something that drives them to create and to share. Like the sharing part is really, I think, a whole other piece of this whole conversation. And yeah, I'm not even really sure where to take that in this context, but point being, I really just want people to feel open to share like their good luck and their, particularly in the context of that first iteration of good luck, to share their ancestral baggage and the sorts of things that like are a part of us that we don't really um, focus on consciously or really address on a day-to-day basis. And I think really like making this project made a lot of people feel more connected to those sorts of ideas. I would say the audience of that show, I exhibited it for 2 days, the first one. Um, I would say that there probably weren't that many Jewish people that came. Like maybe there were a couple dozen, of the couple hundred that came. Um, but I think it was mainly like non-white attendees that were really like, damn, I hadn't really thought about things in this context, or I didn't like think to express or like retrace my familial stuff in this way. And that was the best part of it, really. So yeah, we don't have to stay on this too much longer, but I really do appreciate you asking me about it. And yeah, I've been thinking so much about this stuff for like since that show for years, and it's just been like it's been so much thinking and parsing through the ideas and knowing where to pick up and where to leave off on the next chapter. But I know that when it happens, it will be probably the best thing I've done, or at least like some of the most meaningful stuff I've done. And now that I'm really dedicated full time to art and Web3, I know that it will come sometime in the next probably couple of years. But I'm also not trying to rush it. Like I want people to connect with it in a similar way to the first one. So yeah, good luck to me on doing that.
Yo, man, I as far as where we take it, to me, process provides context to creation. And oh, I might need to quote that. That sounds
Yeah,
pretty
that was
cool.
good.
Yeah, right.
I had to run that back in my head, like right after you said it. I was like, oh shit, that was
Oh
good.
man, but it does where it becomes a bit cliche when you hear people say like, oh, the destination is the journey. Um, Anytime I look at art personally, I'm always wondering like what was going through your mind that allowed this to come to life. So hearing about this really allows me to experience any of the pieces in a way that I don't think I would or many others would without hearing the process, without understanding that context that led to this stuff being made, to this art being made, not stuff. Stuff is too general. I okay, this has been ill, and that one thing I love about these conversations is it's a very loose format. I didn't provide you with any talking points or topics that we would cover. It's
Yeah,
just based
none.
around
I
yeah,
had no
it's
idea what to expect.
it's literally based around the fact that I am really excited about this space. I'm really excited about Web3, and I'm very interested to see how many of these people that I'm coming across that I feel are extremely talented and are doing things that either fit into Web3 or will fit into Web3 in their traditional careers, and watching that grow over time. The concept of money trees is just that you've come on here, you have planted a seed, planted an idea, and you have planted and thoroughly described good luck world in a way that as you continue doing this for the rest of your life, I hope that this conversation kind of becomes a moment in time that you can look back on and hear the way you express the origin, today, March 22nd, 2022, in 10 years and say, wow, look how it's grown, and look how the excitement or the energy around it has shifted. And I love that. This has been incredible. There were probably, I'm trying to think if there's anything really specific I want to touch on with you before we get out of here, just because I love where this conversation went. I'll be real, you did most of my work for me today. I'm not mad at that either. Like, there was anytime I had a question, your storytelling or your verbal recap of what you were going through, you answered it. And I love that just as a narrator. That was really fire. It was really great to listen to. I think when people listen back on this, they will feel more immersed in your world, and the art that was already visually appealing will now have that extra layer of context for them to enjoy and really understand why you create and where some of that passion comes from.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
there's one piece that I would love to, just as a music man, I would love to talk with you on this before you get out of here.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
So you said my music industry take for today is 99% of people who preach that they know what they're talking about are full of shit, and most of the time are hypocrites. Doesn't matter
Oh
if you
my
have
god.
plaques, internet clout, or neither.
You
Smoke and
pulled up some
fucking
old
mirrors.
tweets?
But no, hear me, Max. I'm with you on it. That's a
Wait. Can you pin that tweet? Where are you seeing when is this from? I'm so curious when I tweeted that. Oh my god.
Yo, man. I can I pin this? Maybe I can pin this. Hold on. Let me
Please
see if
pin
I can
it.
get
I wanna
if I
see
can get
that.
the actual tweet up. Um,
I sound so salty. When you read that out loud, I sound so salty. That's so funny.
well, it was funny to me just because I didn't take it as salty. I took it as like there's so many times when I'm in meetings and I've had conversations on this show about it where I'm just like, yo, this is all some bullshit. Like, what are y'all talking about? Why are y'all so confident in saying? And I tell my artists this, not even that my artist. I tell the artists that I work with. I've really tried to remove that completely from the vocab, because that, like, the idea of ownership in art is not okay to me as a manager. But I tell the artists that I work with, I tell people that I talk with, like even on the show, it's like, yo, this isn't this. You're not expected to be an expert on here. We're talking about you, the guest, and you're gonna know what you know about yourself. But I don't come on here and say that I know all there is to know about Web3. I'm constantly learning, constantly trying to figure out more that's happening. And it's wild the amount of experts, quote unquote, that I run into, both in this space and in my, I guess just like in my day to day. So when I saw that you said that, it was, it was refreshing to me because I'm like, yo, fucking retweet, quote unquote. I'm about to pin this up, but
Okay, I wanna read it. I heard what you said, but I'm like, "Wow, I don't remember that." It does sound like me, though.
no, I got you in like 15 seconds. It's about to be pinned up here. I'm gonna add it to the nest, And yeah, there we go.
Oh my god. Okay, so this is September 16th, 2020. I said my music industry take for today is 99% of people who preach that they know what they're talking about are full of shit, and most of them are hypocrites. Doesn't matter if you have plaques, internet clout, or neither. Smoke and fucking mirrors. LOL. This is so wow. This is probably around the time that I felt absolutely burnt out doing A&R and dealing with people. I don't know what else to say. I feel like it kind of speaks for itself, but like, and you know, perhaps this is a good way to tie together the conversation. Like, I don't think that my way of making art or curating art or speaking about my art or whatever is necessarily the right way. It's just like what I care about and the approach that I've decided to take. And I think I'm pretty consistent across like my career in the music industry, my visual art career, uh, curating, etc. Like I think like if you were in my room right now, you would see like, and I've probably had most of these posters for like over 5 years, but like I have this Yeezus poster, I have a Blonde poster, I have a Kid A poster, I have a Because the Internet poster. Like those albums are some of the albums that like really define and like I don't know if I'm going to put this in the right way, but like those are the albums that I really give a fuck about that like represent sort of this like existential like left of center mentality, and I think that carries over pretty well into my art and like some of the stuff that I like to wear and some of the places I like to go and some of my friends and the art that I've bought and the records on my shelf and stuff like that. So point being is like I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way to like do any of these things, and I'm certainly not a web3 genius. Like I'm constantly learning more and more stuff on a technical and like blockchain level that I don't even fully understand. um so yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. I think it actually, I feel like I really needed to see this in a weird way, like post quitting that job and like post that part of my life. Because I think it really applies to everything. It could apply to like your relationships and the way that you cook and the way that you clean your bathroom. Like, um, but with art it's like, and with these things that get like really personal and have like a creative aspect to them, it's just so personal. And I think in like in any industry or like corporate or business endeavor, you're just going to have folks that are motivated by like fame or clout or money or like the visual of success rather than a particular goal or ideal. And I don't even want to sound like so altruistic or like on a high horse or whatever by saying that, but I don't know. I think like having gone through phases where like maybe I've delineated a bit from that path or from that um mindset, like I've always come back around and like not fucked with what I did during that time. So yeah, I think this could definitely get applied to Web3. I think something that I'm seeing more and more as I go, sadly, is there are a lot of parallels, and you know, especially in crypto art and like music NFTs and just in general, I guess like the crypto industry as a whole. um, it's totally driven by the same things as the music industry and pretty much any other industry. Like there are lots of folks that are here purely for money or clout or whatever. But there's always going to be that tribe of people that like really care about a specific thing or are trying or like still want to make money or whatever, but that's not like the only goal. Um, so yeah, I'm not even sure if you really wanted me to like analyze my own tweet there, but yeah, that
So
was
Max,
great.
I liked it because you actually led again doing great at covering both sides today, but you led into what I was going to say, where I felt like there's a parallel here in this space. And when I read this, I was like, yo, it's really interesting seeing how this concept kind of applies to crypto art right now, where people that are preaching, they know, oh, ETH is going up or down and all of this. It's some of the worst people to follow. And the
Yep.
people that are just doing, the people like the, or compared to the people that are just doing, where when you can look at someone that talks about their process, what they like, what they don't like, and what that is without trying to feel like they are the authority on it or that there is a quote unquote right way or a right project, it becomes it just becomes a little gross. And I think that a lot of people are full of shit in this space there too. And not to say like even with me, like yo, I preface everything with like, yo, I don't know shit. I just know what I like. And if you like what I like, then you might agree with what I'm saying. But that's about it. There isn't going to be a right way to consume art or to do any of this shit. Just in life in general, there is no right way. You gotta live your life in a way that most makes the most sense to you. And when I read this, it just reminded me of that personally. So had to put you on the Summer Jam screen with that one. I'm glad that
Dude,
it was
yeah, thank
refreshing for
you.
you too.
Thank
Oh
you.
man.
Yeah. I one thing that I didn't touch on there that I just want to add too is like I part of the reason why I'm really out here curating and doing the most and like trying to do more shows is like I'm just really unimpressed with the curation in the space. Like I feel like there are maybe a handful of people that have been sort of chosen as like the curation gatekeepers, whether it's through different platforms or I don't know if DAOs are really part of the problem yet, but I guess that remains to be seen. Um, but I feel like there's this handful of people that are curating shows and curating from the same list of like 30 artists where maybe 90% of them are white guys and like all of them are either on like and I don't know if I should get too political here and like name platforms, but like the top two or three platforms that are hard to get into, like that's not it. Like that's not all that's here. Like you need to discover new stuff. You need to give people the opportunity to make it to those platforms or to make it to whatever they want to do. And I think there is a responsibility for the curators to like actually do some work and not just pick off the same list. And I feel like every conference or whatever that I've seen, it's like wildly unimpressive. And that's kind of why I started for the TL, which is sort of like a loose collective and kind of a traveling group show of like over 60 artists. Is because like, and there are some like very legit names on there, like people who are on those platforms and have been in some of those shows. But there's also like artists that I discovered the night before on Object, or like artists that have like definitely been in the community and are doing well, but like might not be making the same sales or like still can't get accepted onto whatever platform. Um, and I've kind of that. I don't want to say that I'm fully selfless because, like, I want to get paid for sure for work, but like, um, that was a big reason to start for the TL and to not just focus on like some of these kind of like more business plays or like longer term shows that could actually make real money for me in the future. I've never charged a curator fee yet. Like that's something I'm probably going to do for the first time this year when I could get the production of a show to a place where I feel like the artist should be contributing somehow to that. But yeah, I've always felt this way, like with playlist editors or with like bloggers or whatever. And it's never going to be perfect, but I feel like it's super unequitable in Web3, which kind of goes against the whole thing. And like, if your show doesn't even have like one woman in it or more than one woman or like a single black woman not that it's just about identity either, but it's like the art is so good in this space and it's so the art in itself is so diverse that it's like even if you did just a photography show, you could represent people from so many different places or that have so many different takes on just photography or just 3D renders or just acrylic paintings or whatever. Um, so yeah, just do better, curators. I'm coming for your fucking necks. I'm pissed. Like we got to do better. I don't take this lightly. Like I really feel like I have a responsibility here. Like with a little bit of um I don't know if you want to call it clout, but like whatever like status I've gained in doing some of these projects and some of these shows, like I still feel like I have way more work to do on all this stuff. So if you're really cozy in your platform job, like try something different. Like try to do a little bit better. Put a new artist in your show. For real.
I fucking love it, Max. I fucking love it. And I echo every sentiment you just relayed on here. That's what I got. This is like the second one, 2 for 2. I have nothing else of quality to add. He has said it eloquently, and that's that. Yo, my G, this has been ill. We could actually probably talk for 5 more hours. You mentioned for the TL. I will add links for everyone to check out what you were building over there. I think that is another necessary experience and another necessary arm of Web3. Again, you highlighted so many of the curatorial problems that we're currently experiencing in the space that need to be solved. You spoke on it not being solely about identity, but I think back to our conversation, the one we're currently having, and so much of the story that you've told could only be told by someone of your background and of your life experience. And part of that goes into the curation, where if you have the same exact people, and I'm saying exact people, people from the same exact background, the stories are inevitably going to remain closely related, and you will lack diversity in thought,
Yeah.
along with diversity in representation. And so I think that when you think about what curation is, and part of getting the best galleries, quote unquote, together, best is going to be subjective. A lot of that is going to need to be stories that only certain people are able to tell. And if you limit your approach there, you will limit the experience that the viewers or the people going to the exhibits will have. And so I think that your approach, while there may not be a right way, this is one that I heavily fuck with. So that's that's all I got there. Before I let you get out of here, man, because I cannot wait to edit this. This episode will be live on all the platforms, and I'm sure that there are curators that will learn from your approach to this space, from the thoughtfulness that you take in what you build, and you're literally providing a blueprint for another way of curation that we are not currently seeing. So I know you said it with like the little bit of clout. I think the clout is a part of it, but it's just the approach, that process, showing people the behind the scene looks and the thought that goes into putting on these events the way that you do, connecting these artists the way that you do, and displaying their art in the way that you do. It will, I guarantee that this is going to lead to somebody else down the line being able to take something from this. And so I'm already in love with the episode. But again, before I let you go,
Yeah. Thank
I
you,
have
man.
2 questions. Oh yeah, for sure, G. I have 2 questions I ask everyone. The first question is going to be, what is your seed phrase? And as many know, seed phrase in the Web3 space typically refers to your account recovery key. I do not believe seed phrase is a scary enough term, because if I was new to the space and I knew that I had to keep a seed phrase, it's just like, oh, whatever. It just sounds like, it doesn't sound like my password. It doesn't sound like the thing that if I lose, I can lose access to all of my NFTs and all of my crypto. So on Money Trees, we have repurposed seed phrase to be a motto, saying, quote, slogan, lyric that you live by, that embodies your approach to the space, to your art, to your craft. Max Kulchinsky, what is your seed phrase?
Oh man. It's not that, by the way. Uh wow. Uh I think I'm gonna go with good luck world. I think that kind of says it all. If you've listened to the episode, you know what that means.
I fucking love it. I love it. It's funny. I feel like that's where you're like texting LOL and then you're like not laughing, and it's like I fucking love it. No, no, I genuinely love it. I think my tone has gotten a little more steady because you have my brain racing, and I want to make sure that I stay focused and I don't go off on tangents the way that I do. But you have really, really just this has been an experience. I've very much enjoyed this. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to help push this message forward because again, we don't have to say that there's a right way, but I would argue there are many, many people that would appreciate this way and would find a lot of solace and a lot of potential in going about this space in this way. And yeah, so it's really exciting. Good luck, world, I think, is a great seed phrase. The second question I have for you is we're going to list the one of one Money Trees note number 34 up on Zora after this episode. What is the reserve price going to be?
Oh wow. I did not think about that going into this. I definitely want it to have some relation to the number 18. Um, so what's been the range so far? Here's a question for you. Like what have you guys yeah, like what's been the range of reserves to this point?
So it is quite the spectrum we have. It ranges from I believe 0.03 ETH is the lowest, and 819 ETH is the highest.
Okay. Uh that is a big range. Uh let's do let's do 0.18 because if your suspicions are correct, or if your premonition is correct that this will be a time capsule, which by the way I really enjoyed this conversation, though a lot of it was just me talking. Maybe I shouldn't say that because that makes me sound like a bit of a dick. But no, I really do like genuinely appreciate the thoughtfulness behind your questions, and um, yeah, just it's the real recognize real thing. Like I think we're very much on a similar frequency, and you know I think it's easy to like say what your intentions are. Have you ever like had a fight or a conflict with like a friend or someone that you're really close to, and it's like the intention never matters even if you like describe it or explain it like before or after things get sour? It's like
Yep.
the yeah, like the intention of my answers and of this conversation and everything, like I feel was just perfectly understood, probably without even having to explain it to the lengths that we each did. So like conversations that are like that are so pleasing, and I think it just allows for people to like be open to whatever. And I think I even got to learn a few things like just talking out some of these things and from some of your questions. So yeah, thank you for real. Long way of saying 0.18. I think that's like a reasonable number. If this really if you're right and this is like a a time capsule and like a significant moment in both of our stories and in the Web3 saga, then yeah, I think I feel good about that. And like 18% royalty or something like that makes it even better. Let's do that.
There it is. Yo, Max, thank you. This has been enlightening. Ooh, I think that's the first time I've ever used that on the show. I'm trying to expand the vocab. See, there's my brain going on tangents thinking about the great words you have used here and how the hell swastika and mazel tov have similar translations is still going to be one that sits with me all day and probably longer than that. Okay, see again, tangents. You summed it up so well, man. You should have enjoyed this conversation. You give so much light to others. You spend much of your time highlighting others in their work. It has been amazing getting to hear you, express what it is that drives you, the way that you approach your craft and your art. And yeah, this has been fire. So thank you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We will for sure look back at this as a form of time capsule. I will immortalize your note on the blockchain. And it's also just personal anecdote. I was there when that picture was taken. So I very much like that it was the picture chosen to be Max's note. And yeah, that's all I got.
Hell yeah. Thank you for real for asking me and for the great conversation. This was really, really awesome.